Welcome in, everybody, to another week of First Seed Fantasy. And boy, I've got Mr. Zach Cole here for the first time this regular season, coming out of hibernation just in time to help boost everybody into the playoffs. What a time. Happy to have you back, Zach. How have you been?
I've been good, man. I'm glad to be back. I've been itching to talk some fantasy football with you specifically. For anyone who doesn't really know, I coach football at the high school level. So we just wrapped up our season. We had a great season, a lot of positives, but now I'm ready to turn all my focus into fantasy football. Catch everyone up a little bit. I am 9-0 in our league of record. Not bragging, but I'm kind of bragging. So maybe I can give you guys a pointer or two. And it starts with just starting Jalen Hurts every week, but that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and luckily I get to face off against Mr. 9-0 here on Jalen Hurts' bye week.
Yes, you do.
So I'm banking on coming out with the win, but no Tyreek on my squad doesn't help either.
It's a battle of two wounded soldiers right now, so we'll see what happens.
You also don't have AJ Brown, so I'm
Correct.
hoping
Yes.
that swings in my direction as well.
And
But
Raheem Mostert, I'm hurting this week. I really am.
you're not. That team still looks great on paper, but who knows?
We'll
Uh,
see.
but it's week 10. And we're here to talk some quick starts and sits
Mhm.
and wrap it all up with our favorite bets going into the week. Week 10, few tough bye weeks coming at us this
Yes.
week. So we're here to kind of help you navigate through that. And without further ado, let's get into it. My start for the week is good old Javonte Williams, Broncos running back, coming off of a bye, and right before that bye, Williams had his best game of the season so far, putting up 18.8 points PPR, and basically just has fully reclaimed this backfield. Prior to week 7, he hadn't had a game where he had 50% of snaps, but 7 and 8 bounced right back, 53% and then 63% in week 8. Had his best game, 27 touches. He's getting a full workload, and now he gets to face off against Buffalo on Sunday or Monday night, I believe, is the game. And Bills have allowed a running back to score at least 13.8 points in 7 of 9 games this season. So this Bills defense can allow points to the running back position, and I think Javonte is in a spot this week to have a fantastic game.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, Kyle. I think we've seen a positive trend in his snap count recently. I mean, early on in the season, we have to remember he was coming off a pretty devastating knee injury
Oh
last
yeah.
year. So I think people got a little impatient with him because he was slow starting, but that was to be expected, you know. And I think we're finally starting to see that uptick in his usage. We saw a good amount of guys like, I mean, Jaleel McLaughlin the last couple weeks, Samaje Perine the first few weeks. So it really kind of feels like he's starting to take this being him being Javonte Williams is starting to take a stranglehold of this backfield, and it's is really making the most out of his touches that he's getting. I mean, he was up to a 63% snap count in week 8 against the Chiefs, and that was a game that they were surprisingly winning. So you know, that's a good look for him. And if this team wants to remain competitive, I think that they're going to need to continue to feed Javonte and kind of control game scripts with him with heavy run type offenses.
Absolutely, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for with Javonte in leagues that I have him in. But either way, expecting a great week from him. Get that. It's his backfield. He's reclaimed it, and I'm excited to see what he can do with it.
Yeah, and one last point with Javonte, Kyle. I think now is a great buy low opportunity on him before he really starts stringing together some decent weeks.
Yeah,
I know the majority of leagues are probably coming up on trade deadline, so this feels like the ideal time to go and get him. You can see he has Buffalo this week, and really the only vicious defense he still has left is Cleveland, I would say. Detroit's not exactly favorable either, but I mean Houston, the Chargers twice, and the Patriots. You know, he's got some
and
some
a
really nice.
lovely playoff game. Oh no.
Yeah, Absolutely. I mean, week 16, 17 are probably going to be your semis and your championship, and he's got some incredible opportunities lined up for him ahead there. So I like him as a buy low candidate, and I love him as your start of the week this week.
All right, Zach, who you got?
Well, I'm going to go with a wide receiver, a guy that I actually have zero ownership or shares of, I should say, and that's Terry McLaurin, a guy who has pieced together a pretty decent season as of late. He was kind of frowned upon early on in the season for being a little bit up and down. I mean, he opened with 5, came back with 16, dropped down to 10, went up to 22. He's just kind of been up and down on the board, but he's really evened out and has found a kind of nice, consistent level that he's been playing at these last few weeks. And that starts with really his receptions, I would say. He's notched 5 or 6 receptions in all 4 of his last 4 weeks, where he's gone into double-digit scoring. I really think that they're starting to find a rhythm in Washington. I think the early season was a little tumultuous. There's your $2 word of the day for their new offensive coordinator and Sam Howell. You could see that things just weren't really lining up between Bieniemy and Howell. But now it kind of seems like things are coming together a little bit. Washington's starting to string together some wins. And again, much like Javonte Williams, a lot of that comes with getting Terry McLaurin the ball. So I really like him. And I think that he's put together some very positive games. Not to mention he's going up against the Seattle defense that's kind of been reeling the last couple of weeks. I mean, they got absolutely killed by the Seahawks last week. So
Yeah.
I think that they're kind of in a position
Ravens.
right now where the Ravens, thank you. The Seahawks got killed by the Ravens. Thank you. They're in a position right now where Terry should have a very nice day against them. And that's why he's one of my starts of the week.
Yeah. I mean, you can combo Terry with Jahan Dotson, who has also kind of seen a revitalization this season, kind of finally showing up after probably being dropped in a huge majority of leagues. But Terry, we're going to see. I have a strong feeling that this Seattle-Washington game is going to wind up in like a weird shootout. And basically, I picture both offenses clicking. But I think, I mean, you said it. The Commanders on offense kind of figured things out in the passing game. Really slow to start, kind of getting things rolling there. But I mean, we're looking at Terry's past few games, 14, 15, 17, 12 games, 12-point games these past few weeks. And happy to have him back in the starting lineup. Not that you ever probably were taking him out, but just happy to feel happy about him in the starting lineups, I should say.
Well, there was sort of that meme going around too, Kyle, where Bieniemy thought that Logan Thomas was just Travis Kelce 2.0. And you know what? It kind of feels like, I mean, think about it though. He's gone from an offense where receivers were not the strong point and the tight end was to an offense where it's almost reversed. Logan Thomas is on the older end. He's been injury prone. So, I mean, for Bieniemy, I had to take him a little while to figure it out, but it seems like he really is. And I don't know if you happen to see, but NFL whatever made a post on Instagram today where Sam Howell is actually second in passing yards in the whole NFL. He's only behind Tua. So, I mean, that's kind of insane when he's ahead of Hurts, Allen, Mahomes, who would have thought Sam Howell?
Yeah. That's what happens when the Commanders find themselves behind in so many games.
You're right. You're not kidding. Yep, you're not kidding.
Hey everyone, before we get into sits for the week, I do just want to highlight our good partners over at Rival Fantasy, which is a really cool new take on fantasy football, or just a new way to play some fantasy as the NFL season rolls on. If you use our code FIRSTSEED or use the link in our description and sign up for an account, make a deposit, you get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So you put in $20, you get a free $20 to play around with as well. Plus a free $25 voucher. So you can use that $25 to just play wherever you'd like. So for example, let me just highlight a little bit of fun that Rival offers and highlight Fantasy Bingo. So this is a card that I had last week. You basically put together a DFS style roster, but you're not within the confines of a salary. You just kind of pick your team: a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, tight end, kicker, and a flex. And then you are assigned a random bingo board up to however many cards that you like to buy. And you kind of hope that your team fills out that bingo board as the week goes on. So this one's a loser, but for example, this roster, this card had over 150 total yards for a wide receiver. A tight end fumbled. QB had an interception, or RB had over 50 rushing yards. And this isn't like a combined, my RBs had 50 rushing. One running back had 50 plus. A receiver had over 100 receiving yards. But you get the gist. At least I hope. You get this bingo board, and you hope that your team gives you a bingo. And for example, I'll show here of the prize pool that kind of generates as the week approaches, which is like if you buy it, you add on to that prize pool. 56% of that goes to a diagonal winner, vertical, or you basically make a 5 tiles in a row, vertical, horizontal, diagonally, or you get a tile, you get the postcard in any 4 corner, and you just you build that roster, make it a good one, and then you hope that you can get a bingo. So just wanted to highlight that. That is Fantasy Bingo on Rival Fantasy. Use code FIRSTSEED. Give it a shot. You get a free $25 voucher with your first deposit. And have fun. Now let's see those sits.
My sit of the week is good old Amari Cooper. I mean, look, past 2 weeks, 14.9, 24.9. 2 great back-to-back games, and I see it crumbling again this week. Falling back down, not to reality, but I just picture things kind of not looking great for Cooper this week. They faced the Ravens, and I don't know if we can see the last time earlier this season when Cooper faced the Ravens. Now, to be fair, they had a rookie quarterback, Thompson Robinson, playing at QB, so it wasn't the best of situations. But 2.6 fantasy points on 1 catch, 16 yards wasn't exciting. And the Ravens are actually allowing the 6th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers this season. And unless Cooper catches a touchdown, I'm not seeing a very solid fantasy outing this season or this week from him. But the Ravens have actually only allowed a touchdown to 3 wide receivers this season. So something to, I guess, keep in mind when playing around with Amari Cooper in your rosters. Now, obviously, if you can't afford to sit Cooper, understandable. But just know if you've got roster decisions to make and Cooper's kind of floating on the edge there, probably lean towards sitting this week. Just how I see things planning out this week for a good old Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I think that really the major knock against Cooper this week lies in who he's playing. I think you hit the nail on the head. The Ravens are not a team to mess with. I mean, everyone kind of thought that their defense was going to regress this year negatively, and it's done exactly the opposite. I mean, they've just taken it up a notch. Last week, bringing in, I'm actually getting the right team now. When they played the Seahawks, the Ravens played the Seahawks. The Seahawks actually combined, their wide receivers had less points than Amari Cooper did individually last week. They accounted for 24 point something, and you can see Amari Cooper's here at 24.9. So, I mean, just a ridiculous stat when you kind of think about that. So it doesn't really matter who's guarding him. The Ravens secondary seems to be extremely legit and is going to shut whoever is out there throwing or trying to catch the ball down. And I think that this is both a case for the Ravens defense and against Amari Cooper this week.
Yeah, it's this Ravens defense has just been insanely dominant this season. And who's to say that they stop rolling against a Browns offense that hasn't fully clicked, it feels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, part of that, Kyle, you alluded to Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting earlier in the season, but part of that is it has to be as a result of Watson not staying healthy and then playing musical chairs in the quarterback room. I mean, it's hard to build chemistry
there. Yeah,
exactly. It's hard to build chemistry with anyone when you don't know who's going to be throwing to you on a week-to-week basis. So
absolutely,
and that could be part of Deshaun Watson's problem too, is that he can't stay healthy. He can't get in the flow of the offense, or he just lost a step when he took that year off. I don't know, but we're getting too far away from the point here. All right, let me hop in with my sit of the week here. My sit of the week is going to be a guy who's actually returning, and I think people are going to be eager to throw him in the lineups because he was such a stalwart early on in the season, and that's going to be David Montgomery, the running back for the Detroit Lions. And I'm just going to say that I think Montgomery is a sit this week because I think that in his missed time, he provided opportunity for Jahmyr Gibbs, who we saw just go absolutely nuclear for 2 straight weeks now. So I think that Montgomery, this is more of a situation of him losing opportunity than it is of him not capitalizing on his opportunity. So there's something to kind of be said where if you're just getting touches, whether it's rushes or targets or whatever, you're going to score fantasy points. And I think just by simple math, we've seen Jahmyr Gibbs ball out, and that means David Montgomery is going to lose some touches. So that means his fantasy points are going to go down. So I think that just simply based off of that kind of, I almost want to say mental math, I think that he's probably going to be one of my sits for this week.
Yeah, I mean, prior to, I guess, Montgomery going down, I'll pull up Gibbs as well. We saw a little bit, like we see 7 carries, 8 carries from Gibbs on weeks that Montgomery was active, while Montgomery was carrying the ball upwards of 32 times. I see that number floating similar to where we saw week 2, around 16, maybe a little bit closer to 20 carries. I could picture almost 0 passing work for Montgomery. That's going to all go back to Gibbs. And it's going to be more where prior it was probably like a 75-25 time share in this backfield. It'll probably even out to flat out 50-50. I'm personally in the boat that it'll probably be 60-40 in favor of Montgomery. Just based on how this Lions offense wants to work. It wants to ground and pound with Montgomery, toss it over to the side to Gibbs and let him do his magic on the sidelines. But yeah, I'm with you. It's a tricky matchup for the Bears. Or not the Bears, the Lions. Montgomery was a Bear last year. It's a tricky game with the Chargers this week for the Lions. I picture this game kind of being won in the air.
Yes, agreed.
Whichever team comes out on top. And so with that, I mean, unless there are 4 goal line opportunities for Montgomery, it's not going to be a wildly successful game for him, but who knows? Amon-Ra goes down at the 1. They just punch it in with Montgomery.
Yeah.
He's 2 touchdowns away any given game from just balling out or just it's basically just 2 yards. I say 2 touchdowns, but it's 2 yards away from having a RB1 game and a weekly dud game. But
yeah, it all kind of falls on where the ball ends up. If like you said, if they're inside the 3, he's going to get it on first down and second down, and if he doesn't convert, they're going to go the air on third. But he's going to get his shots at the end zone if the ball is down that way. So I think, long story short, I think that's his biggest path or his most likely path to scoring points this week, and that's extremely volatile to have to bank on touchdowns, which is why he's one of my sits of the week.
A bold one, especially as you yourself are an eager David Montgomery rosterer.
I am. I have him in a good amount of places. Yep, absolutely. And it's kind of, I say he's a sit this week, but I've got no one else to freaking put in my lineup, so he's in there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if he's the only guy you can start, you can't feel bad about it. You can't expect that you're not going to get a dud out of Montgomery. It's basically just like you're not going to get that 34 points, 20 points that we've seen earlier this season. I think if anything, we're going to see like 11 points come from good old Monty this week.
Yeah, you're going to get hit with the 12 rushes for 58 yards. And like we said, if he makes it in the end zone, you're on cloud 9. And if he doesn't, you got 6 points.
12 rushes, 58 yards. That sounds almost spot on what it might wind up being.
Book it.
With the target for 8 yards.
Yeah, just to bump it up to 8 points, right? 8.4 points or 7.4 points. Yep.
A clean 7.4 outing from Monty. Sure.
I can't wait.
All right. That'll do it for start sit. Zach, let's talk bets.
Let's do it.
Just a quick favorite, I guess, money line over under spread pick for this upcoming week 10 that we've got. Just a quick fire. I'm gonna give mine. I'm looking at Arizona plus 1.5 against the Atlanta Falcons. Let's see it. We've got James Conner and Kyler Murray both looking to be back on the field this game. We've got an Atlanta Falcons team that just lost to Josh Dobbs, who hadn't practiced really with the first team yet. And this Falcons team is an embarrassment. And I picture this Cardinals offense just ready to score points that they've been itching to do all season. And I don't see Kyler stepping in here week one, first game back from injury and being slow. I picture that man being ready, or he wouldn't be out there in the first place. So give me Cardinals plus 1.5. I have a feeling they could win this one.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. I that combo of Murray and Connor, they find a way to put points on the board, whether it's pretty or not, and the front office and the coaching staff in Arizona has come out and said that that Kyler's not going to be limited with his legs either, which is kind of that X factor when it comes to him. So we'll see. I think that's a great pick, and Arthur Smith seems to love to lose football games one way or another. So we'll see what happens there. As for my bet, Kyle, I'm going to go with the Vikings money line. I'm going to take Mr. Dobbs in another week with the offense. The Vikings play the New Orleans Saints this week, who I think are a very up and down team. And I think that the Vikings are on an absolute tear right now, and they are just on the upswing. And I love them as dogs right now. So, as at a plus 124 odds, I think that's a fantastic bet.
That's a really good bet. Go Vikings, sure.
At home, nonetheless.
I think they figured something out. I think Dobbs is going to shoot some electricity into this team. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be – I'm with you. Let's see if Vikings win over there.
And what's one last point about that. Dobbs always seemed to get the Cardinals the lead. They would go up 10, 15, 20 points, and then that defense just could not hold on for 4 quarters, and they would fall apart. Whereas I think the Minnesota defense can hold on for Dobbs to get him wins. So I not getting too far out of the point here. I think that was an incredible trade for the Vikings to make at the deadline.
Absolutely. And gives Justin Jefferson even more of a reason to return from
Absolutely.
IR.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. They made a fantastic decision. Go Vikes. All right. That'll do it for this week with our start sits and our best bets of the week. Zach, it was an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Always a pleasure.
You can follow us on socials. The First Seed is particularly active on Instagram. So if you've got any start sits or trade questions, shoot us a DM, shoot us a comment, whatever you want over there, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you for tuning in. Zach, again, pleasure chatting with you. And everybody out there, let's get a win this week.
Let's do it. See you guys.